and I'm going to call on my colleagues to my left and my right to briefly introduce themselves as well.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us here today. My name is Robin Friedman Kramer. I'm the CEO of the Jewish Federation of West Central New Jersey. We cover Somerset, Huntington, and Warren counties. And we have about 14,000 Jewish residents in the county.
Hi, thank you so much for having us here. I'm Jennifer Dubrow-Weiss. I'm the CEO of the Jewish Federation of Southern New Jersey, which is Camden, Burlington, and Gloucester counties. And we have roughly 60,000 Jewish people in our community.
I'd like to thank you. I'm Susan Anham, the Executive Director of the Jewish Federation of the Heart of New Jersey. We represent Middlesex and Monmouth counties and have 100,000 Jewish people in our catchment area.
And not with us today is my colleague Steve Levy from the Jewish Federation of Greater Metro West, who combined with us in northern New Jersey represent over 250,000 people living in Jewish households. I'm going to respect the time limit today because it looks like you have a rather thick docket to go through. So if I could just generically thank everyone for their part of this and not mention all the names, I would hope that would be acceptable, but I want to share with you how appreciative we are to everyone in this room, to everyone who sponsored this, and to the system and to the democratic process which we live in. Many people will testify today. Those in favor of this bill will cite clear facts and trends backed by credible sources, including the FBI, the U.S. New Jersey Attorney General's Office, and the ADL. Opponents, on the other hand, will claim that adopting the IRA definition curtails free speech. But as you've heard, it simply does not. That is why over 37 states and over 30 countries have adopted this already. I, along with hundreds of thousands in New Jersey, are simply exhausted by having to continually explain and defend this truth. So why am I here again, standing before elected officials in our great state? Because the Jewish community must stand up to those bullies who see this bill as a threat to their ability to harass and intimidate us. And because Jewish tradition compels us to engage in the democratic process, to seek justice, fight hate wherever it appears. But we've reached a tipping point. I can no longer pretend that this process has been fair to New Jersey's Jewish community. Yes, the opposition will find individuals who identify as Jewish or oppose anti-Semitism to promote their cause. You may hear from some of them today, but they represent a tiny fraction of New Jersey's more than 610,000 Jews. They are praised by critics of the bill because they espouse views not shared by the vast majority of us. And while I and most of the Jewish community find these views offensive, the IRA bill clearly allows for criticism of Israeli policy. It simply makes clear that no one has the right to commit violence or discrimination against Jews based on those views. Let me put it another way. I and those I represent denounce Islamophobia because all hate is wrong. We have never opposed language or legislation that addresses anti-Muslim bigotry because it is morally the right thing to do, regardless of the scope of the problem. According to the FBI, 68% of all religious-based hate crimes in the U.S. were directed against the Jewish community, while anti-Muslim incidents accounted for only 8.7%. Here in New Jersey, according to the Attorney General's Office, back in 2023 alone, anti-Jewish bias accounted for 22% of all incidents, while anti-Muslim bias was 4%. And we know those numbers in that gap has only worsened since the horrific attacks of October 7th. The numbers are clear. Anti-Semitism is a national crisis. Jews are facing unprecedented numbers of bias incidents, and yet we remain amongst the most vocal voices opposing all forms of hate. Passing IRA will protect the Jewish community and counter the very harassment tactics that opponents of this bill often use. Just ask the residents of Teaneck, West Orange, Lakewood, and Highland Park, just to name a few of the towns, that have been subjected to violent protests and harassments. Now ask yourself, has there ever been a time where a mob of angry Jews marched into Patterson, Clifton, or elsewhere, tore kufis off Muslim men, spit on citizens, and shouted slurs like rapist, baby killer, or kidnappers? Can anyone name one instance where a Jewish mob called for the ethnic cleansing of Muslims and then defaced a mosque? Of course not. This is the real reason many oppose the IRA bill. not because it threatens free speech, but because it threatens their ability to freely target Jews with hate. Because it will limit their strategies and tactics to purposefully target Jews and those who are supportive of it. You are, in fact, free to be a bigot in the United States. If you want to criticize Israel, you can. If you want to call someone a dirty Jew, you can. But you cannot threaten or assault Jews at a synagogue event, screaming all Zionists should die or Jews are Nazis. That is an anti-Semitic hate crime and needs to be recognized and prosecuted as such. That is why this legislation matters to us. That is why the burden is now on this committee and our state to do the right thing. Don't be misled by false arguments, and don't be intimidated by the bullies. Take a clear moral stand and affirm that hate has no home in this Oregon state. Committee members, I thank you for your time and consideration. Do the right thing and vote in favor of the bill. Thank you.